This conference will now be recorded.
Shayna, if you could can you hear us? Can you speak?
This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody is warm. It is 7:01, and we're beginning our meeting of Thursday, February the 25th. And what did I say? It is 7:02, and we are in full session. We have a full house here, and we're going to move to order. We did not have an executive session. We're moving into the regular session at 7 p.m. and we'll have an invocation given by Cynthia.
Father God, we just come before you tonight, thankful for your grace, your mercy. Lord, we pray for those that are still out on the road. We pray and are thankful for our first responders who have been on the road and busy working and serving people these last 2 days over the weather event that we have had. Father God, we just thank you for the opportunity to come before you this evening to deliberate city business, and we pray that you would guide our speech and our hearts and our minds to glorify you in everything that we say and do. In Jesus' name, amen. To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And we'll now have announcements and Shayna, I don't know where you are or how this is going to work. Shayna, do you have anybody's presentation to read?
Shayna's going to do the online, and I'll be doing the in person.
Okay. Shayna, do we have anybody that submitted anything in writing?
We do. The first one is Lisa Ann Wilson. As a long-term resident of 55 years, I have noticed that the governing body has begun to enforce the parking ordinance. In my memory, this ordinance has been in a moratorium sequence for many years, mostly because of Old Town Rome. Please redo the ordinance so as to work with Old Town Rome residents. Many areas in Old Town Rome have nowhere to park other than how they are currently handling it, i.e. Methodist Church and others. If residents are required to hard surface easements or alleyways, they could be covering utilities. It seems to me that mixed information is coming from the city. Please explain. Code violation is in the current aggressive code violation citations political? Hopefully not. Yes, our town needs to be cleaned up. However, the large number recently issued seems to be over the top. Why is that? Two married people who live in the same house are both running for council. I realize that this is legal, but is it what the residents want for our city? This is close to nepotism. However, the state allows it, and I feel that it is not kosher but improper. It could be an attempt to stack cards in their favor for political gain and to further their political agenda. First Amendment rights. Some of our governing body are attempting to silence citizens' First Amendment rights by restricting public presentations and keep residents in the dark. Citizens have the right to freedom of speech and to address our government. When a council member is sworn in, they must learn to take the compliments along with the criticism. Enjoy the praise and listen to the complaints and try to make changes accordingly. The same governing body that is pushing this change and referencing House Bill 2840 have the audacity to also go on social media and or other avenues to try to bully tax-paying citizens for their opinion and actual documents and facts. That is simply shameful. I also am of the opinion that this meeting should have been delayed because of the severe weather that will only get worse in the dark. Also, Wise County EMS is staying off the roads. Thank you for your time. Lisa Ann Wilson. And next we have Deborah B. Craft. This was submitted. I would like to thank the council and City Hall for showing the citizens just how much you really care about their welfare by holding this council meeting tonight. You felt the roads so unsafe that you did not open City Hall today, but are having a meeting tonight after temperature drops again. Even if the roads are passable for the start of the meeting, they could be very hazardous by the end of the meeting. So thank you for caring about the safety of those who would attend the meeting. I am glad the citizens get to learn this before the election. By the way, House Bill 2840 allows my freedom to criticize your actions. Thank you for your time, Deborah B. Craft. Next, we have Shirley Mize. I believe she's online.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Shirley Mize. I'm at 170 Russell. The first is HB 2840. HB 2840 also includes a provision permitting a governmental body to adopt reasonable rules regarding the public's right to address the body, including time limits. The governmental body only permits public comment at the beginning of the meeting in most cases and has a policy of 3 minutes time limit for testimony per item. I hope you didn't fall down. The Attorney General starts that a rule caps to the total amount of time a speaker has to address all agenda items is permissible only if the rule is reasonable. A reasonable period of time will depend on many factors, including the number of agenda items and their complexity, and is a fact question for the governmental body to determine in the first instance, subject to judicial review. The next item I want to talk about is item N, ownership old school. Transferring property on condition. A reversionary interest is created when a deed provides that property transferred is on condition that or only for so long as the property described in the deed is used or not used for certain purposes. The reservation of the reversionary interest in deeds gives the original owner and the owner's heirs, successors, and assigns a powerful tool to take the land back if permissions about future land use are broken. The change of ownership can occur automatically when the condition is broken, or it can occur only if and when the holder of the reversionary interest elects to take the property once the condition is broken.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Shirley. If other people, if you are on the line, if you would please mute your phone because we're hearing a lot of noise. So if you would please mute your phone. Shirley, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No compensation is paid upon the occurrence of an automatic revision. The next item I wanted to talk about was grant writing, item O. Grant writing company's funding, basically. But my suggestion, or as far as I would like for us to maybe look at having some of our employees or one of our employees to maybe get educated on grant writing. I think it's offered online, and there's a lot of tools out there that's available. And I would think that that would be a benefit for our city to have that experience. I know that other towns do have it. So I would like for us to maybe look into that instead of going out and paying somebody to do our grant search and writing on our own. I think that we have the capabilities, and I think that some of our council people have capabilities of grants as well as far as education. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Shirley. Shayna, are there more?
Not that I have.
Okay.
Again, we just want to remind everybody that's signing on, if you would please mute your phones, because we are hearing a lot of feedback. We're hearing a lot of fumbling around, and it makes it hard to hear those that are trying to speak on the public comment. We appreciate it. Mayor, at this time, I have one public comment in person, and that is Jerry. If you would come up, state your full name and your address, please, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Lobdell, and I am living at 709 Troxel Boulevard in Crown Point. I'm here again on behalf of our Rhome United Methodist Church. Biggest complaint is the rezoning churches to commercial, where we are paying the commercial rates for water, sewer, garbage. Garbage we dropped because we don't have enough garbage to mess with the rates. We're a small church. We have lost a lot of people due to COVID and I don't know what all's going on. And we see approximately 20 per Sunday. And we have several that do watch online, but these are the finances that we're dropped down to. For the sewer rates, when they jumped, we went from, where is it? In 2021, the rates went up effective in September. In September, our water was 81.24, sewer, or we used 81.24 gallons, which is because of the garden that we have started. It's a community mission type garden that we are doing. We gave away vegetables. We had Saturday morning people could come and buy vegetables or donate. We didn't sell them. We put out a donation jar. And what we'd like to do is expand that garden, but at the rates of the sewer and water, we are strapped. When the rates went up, we used, it went from, water went from $89 to $92, but our sewer went from $69 in 1 month to $187 the next month. It's gone, back down because our usage, because of the garden, is less. I mean, we're down into the hundreds of dollars and, low hundreds instead of almost 200. We water, and therefore it goes into the ground. It does not go into the sewer. I understand that what goes in and what goes out is how things are calculated. I don't know what all can be done about that, but as far as the churches being zoned commercial, the Department of Labor does not classify churches as business. And there is a federal law, which is called the Federal Land Use Act of 2000, which prohibits zoning laws that discriminate against churches and other places of religious activities. Under this law, it is unlawful for most localities to adopt a zoning law that substantially burdens the religious exercises of churches or other religious institutions.
Jerry, I'm so sorry, but you're over 3 minutes at this point.
Oh,
But if you will give us that information,
okay.
we'll make sure it's in the minutes,
All right.
and staff will look into that.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yes, Mayor, we just have one. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to announcements. Council members, before we start that, I'll read what Cynthia has put me down to say. These are the people that are running for office. Place 4 is Kathy Carnegie and Selm Eason, who is the incumbent. Place 5 is Tommy Eason and Patrick Meehan. For mayor, it's Josh McCabe and Patricia Mitchell. Our next council meeting will be March the 10th, 2022, and coming about March the 15th, you may get a postcard in your mail that has the water bill on it. That's going to help us maybe not have to stuff 500 plus envelopes every month. They'll come out pre-printed and there they go. So bear with us. If you see a problem with it, certainly let us know on the thing. Saturday, March the 19th, there is a citizens forum on facilities. And I would like to make a quick personal announcement. As a longtime resident of Rome with strong family ties, I would like to thank all of you that allowed me to be your mayor. I chose not to run again because of the animosity displayed toward me by most of the council. I ran to help make our town as one and to reduce spending. As you can see, that did not happen. I was able to obtain a grant for the city for $350,000. I consider that an accomplishment. And we are in the process of almost through getting fiber optics here. QT is coming to our town. We cannot take credit for that. We didn't find them, they found us. But we're glad they did on the thing. And, we're still split. We need to get over that. And most of the council has authorized significant spending over which I have no control. I do appreciate the opportunity given me by the citizens. I just could not accomplish what I saw the need for. I want the best for our city of Rome. Council people, anybody have anything to say?
I have something, Mayor.
Okay.
I just want to make a statement on why the meeting was decided to be held tonight. It wasn't a decision that was taken lightly. This morning, the road conditions before the people were coming into work were not good at all. Northwest was closed. A lot of places were closed. So City Hall was closed. However, our city's emergency response teams have been monitoring the roadways and conditions all day long. They've been working with city staff to update them on the conditions almost on an hourly to 2 hourly basis. And at their expert opinion, by the time this evening rolled around, the conditions were good for people to travel with caution to attend this event. With that information, it was relayed to the city council via an email, and then a poll was taken of the city council. To hold a meeting, you have to have a majority of the council, so at least 4 members of this council have to agree to hold the meeting. The council voted anonymously, and we do not know who voted for what, but a majority of the council did feel that it was safe conditions to hold this meeting. Along with that, and our other abilities for people to join via telephone or virtually, people could do so from the safety of their homes. So nobody had to travel, nobody had to put their safety at risk to be here except for the council members. So with all of that, that is why I believe, or at least I voted for the council to have the meeting tonight, because we thought it was proper conditions, it would be safe to be here, as well as there's at least a couple of agenda items that the city does need to discuss, and sooner rather than later. One of them that does affect the upcoming citizen forum. So that is why I think that the city council did vote to hold this meeting tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ashley, I've got you down.
Ma'am. All right. I first and foremost would like to give thanks to the citizens of Rome for allowing me to serve as your council member. Throughout my term, I tried to fight for the citizens and employees. However, I was only one vote and I did not feel I made an impact in the hostile environment. I have decided to step down in my role and council, considering the inadequate administration. Going forward, I will continue to serve as an active citizen of Rome. In relation, my goal is to make a positive difference and impact within the city without repercussions of other members. Thank you again to the citizens for your loyal support in allowing me to serve you. I will try to do more before my end of my term in whatever I can do. Thank you again.
Thanks, Ashley. Who else? Yes, Sam.
I'd like to address both your comments and Ashley's about talking about a hostile environment. I know that there have been many council meetings where we have asked, I personally have asked, can we compromise? Are you willing to compromise? Are you willing to work with us? And so often the answer was no, that there was an absolute position that both you and Ashley were taking so that there was no compromise available. So please do not say we were hostile, because we were not. Just because somebody doesn't buy into your idea doesn't mean they're hostile. Everybody has ideas. We should all work together, and that's what I started at the very beginning of y'all's terms, was saying, we have trust issues, let's work through those trust issues. We have issues, let's start compromising. But yet, you didn't want to, you called me hostile.
I hate to interrupt
I
and
think
play.
we're
I
all-
hate to interrupt and play Carvin, but I think a couple of the announcements and the response we can't have under this item. It just needs to be community announcements and things like that. So.
Well, then we should have stopped the ladies.
I know, and I'm sorry I didn't.
Okay. The thing is, y'all refused compromise, and now you call us hostile.
Well, Sam, we'll discuss this later on. In the very first meeting, you announced, I do not trust you. We have history, and it's been downhill from there.
Again, I believe we're breaking the law right now. We need to keep this to city
Yes, Josh,
statements and move on.
Yeah, let me see your badge on the thing. You got a badge about the law? No. Okay, so anyhow, this is where we are. And Ashley and I both have been the odd people out. Sam is talking about disagreement. Sam, I don't have a dog in the fight very often. I have to, y'all as council have to work with each other and go forward. So we can move on to the consent agenda or to go, well, one other thing I put a note on here. Waste Connections will run on schedule. So get your trash cans out tonight or in the morning. I would have bet money they would not have been on schedule, but Cynthia has made contact and they will be on schedule. Anybody else has anything to say? Okay, the consent agenda is the minutes of the City Council regular session dated February the 10th. Do I hear a motion that we accept those, or?
Mayor, I'm sorry. Can we go back to the announcements?
We sure can.
Chief, Debus, would you like to come up and make that announcement? Yes. Coffee with the Cop, please turn on that mic, please.
We got to see if you can do it.
Forgot to put that on there.
You know.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Cynthia. I just want to remind everybody in the city that Coffee with a Cop, our next Coffee with a Cop will be March 12th. It's a Saturday from 8:30 to 10:30 at the McDonald's at Love's on 114. So we'd love to have as many citizens come out and meet your officers that are here to serve you and get to know you more personally than when we answer a call at your house. So if you're not busy that morning with kiddos or something else, please come out and see us. March 12th, 8:30, Love's McDonald's. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anything else before we move on to the consent agenda? Okay. Now, the consent agenda has one item, and it's the minutes of the City Council regular session, February the 10th. Do I hear a motion we accept that, or do we want discussion?
I'll make a motion, we accept it.
Can we have a motion and a second? Everyone in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so we have the minutes, and I think we need to say thanks to Shayna. She's really getting current on our minutes, and that's really appreciated. Okay, now we're going to have a public hearing, and Cynthia will take over for that. It's relative to carports.
Mayor, we need to close the meeting and then open it into a public hearing.
We can do that. Okay, we will close our regular meeting at 7:27, Thursday, February the 24th, and go into the public hearing. We will open the public hearing at 7:28, Thursday, February the 24th, and this is relative to carport ordinance.
Yes, Mayor. So this is the conducting the public hearing to consider a text amendment to the City of Rome zoning code that will delete the specific use permit requirement for carports and allow the carports to be permitted permitted use within the single family, and you can see all the different zoning districts there. So as background, well, I'll get into that. So I will tell you, we don't have any public comments tonight. When we P&Z considered it, there was one public comment in favor, and that was Mike Gudgeon on at P&Z when we conducted the P&Z public hearing on February 7th.
And the votes on the P&Z.
Well, we'll get into that when we discuss the item. This is just a public hearing on if anybody has a comment on that item.
Okay. Anybody? Okay, moving right along, we have no one that wants to speak. So you ready to close the meeting? Okay, we will now close our public hearing. It is 7. Huh?
Is there anyone online that would like to speak on the public hearing?
You couldn't hear them if they were. It is 7:29, Thursday, February the 24th. We have closed our public hearing, and we are going back at 7:30 into regular meeting. And that starts out with our regular agenda, old business. Discussion and necessary action regarding approval of Code of Conduct ordinance. Cynthia, you want to discuss how we got this back on agenda?
I believe it was vetoed by the mayor. Is that correct?
It was sent back for reconsideration.
Okay.
Yeah, I can explain it. I didn't know Cynthia wanted to more.
Okay. We voted on it once, and I'll vote on it again. I make a motion we pass the code of conduct.
And I did attach.
I second.
My reasons. Okay, everybody in favor?
Aye.
And anybody opposed? And one. So.
Oh, can she hear us when we say aye? And I mean, Shayna. Okay. I didn't know if she could. I'm not in favor.
Okay. So then it will come back for signature on the thing because of the reconsideration. Okay, now we're,
Mayor, I believe there's a correction on that because it was vetoed, brought back to the council and voted on by a majority and passed. It automatically goes into effect without signature.
no, I think I can sign it now and it will be immediate, Josh.
If you want to sign it, that's perfectly fine, but it still goes into effect regardless.
And it would have gone to effect for a 3-day period had I not signed it. It would have automatically gone into effect. Okay, let's move on. And I asked our friend Cynthia just to keep our meeting short. And she went for however many times this is, just because she was asked to by council members. We have H through S for discussion. So let's try to move them as quickly as we can. Cynthia, you want to explain the zoning code
Sure.
that will delete the specific use permit, etc.
Sure. So we just had the public hearing, and as a reminder, we had a public hearing for the P&Z on February 7th, and it passed. They recommended approval to the council 4-1. And so now you have that issue before you. And as a reminder, what we had with the carport was because it was in the zoning code as a specific use permit, we had to do it twofold. So you guys it's already in Chapter 3 of our building codes, and this will take it out of Chapter 14 in the specific use permit, so it will be handled similarly to an accessory structure, just administratively. So people will contact the city hall for a permit for a carport.
And that should save us some money. If we got bunches of people lined up for carports, it would be kind of expensive going through the administrative stuff that happens. So we're going now to item I. Cynthia, this is you again, the 2020.
Well, are you going to take a vote on that?
On
H?
we need a vote?
Yes.
Based on P&Z's recommendation, I motion that we approve this item to move the code specific use permit requirement for carports and allow carports to be permitted as followed with the sections and zoning districts.
I'll second.
All
You're
in
not the
favor?
mayor.
It was garbled. Did anybody? Sam, y'all were ayes, right? And y'all were ayes. And Ashley, what were you?
Aye.
Aye. So we have it by the majority. Okay, moving along to I, discussion of the 2021 city audit. That is our friend Cynthia again.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you remember, Mr. Bill Spohr has been doing our audits for the last several years, and he is going to be retiring. So they did a tag team with Valerie Halverson and out of MWH Group, and she is with us tonight. Bill is as well. She's going to present the report to you all, and then she'll open it up for questions. Valerie, I believe we made you the presenter, so you should be able to share your screen.
Yes. If I do it right.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, great. There we go. Oh. Okay, so thank you for having me. Like Cynthia said, I'm Valerie Halverson. I'm a shareholder at MWH Group out of Wichita Falls.
It's garbled.
Yeah, Valerie, I'm sorry. Yeah, you were a little bit garbled. I'm not sure why.
Was I maybe talking too fast? Is it easier now or still garbled?
It might be a bad connection, so you might want to mute your computer and then just call in and use your phone to call in, and but just mute your computer so we don't get feedback. Because we're seeing your screen just fine.
Are you online, Valerie?
She's going to be calling in, I believe. If we can give her a minute to use her phone to call in, I believe she'll mute her computer and we can hear her better on her phone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Oh.
If you can mute your computer though, because we're hearing echo. You'll still be able to share your screen, but just turn off the sound on your computer.
Well, the sound is off on my computer. I think it's the feedback.
Well, that's a little bit better, though. Even with the echo, it's better than the garbled, I think.
I'm going to walk away from my computer and see if that helps. How's that? Okay, well, let me get started and we'll see how this goes. You know what? I think I just need to turn off the volume on my computer. How's that?
That's good.
That's good. Okay, I'm so sorry for the rough start. So yes, we're the new auditors this year, and I've just put together a little presentation to go through kind of what we did and some of the highlighted numbers. And please feel free to ask me questions as I go through it or save them for the end, either way. But I'll just kind of walk through our audit. So like I said, we did the audit for the year ended September 30, 2021, and that was in accordance with government auditing standards. And like Cynthia said, some of the tasks that your auditor has done in the past were split between Bill Spohr and us. So some of the things that the auditor's done, like prepare the financial statements, we did not do. We just performed an audit of the financials as they were presented to us, prepared by management and by Bill. And with that audit, we issued 2 reports. The first one is our independent auditor's report, and that is on the financial statements. And that says that we believe the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects, which is what we call an unmodified opinion, and as nice as we get as auditors, the type of opinion we'd want to see. And then in addition to that, we issued a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance and other matters, and that's a required report for audits performed in accordance with government auditing standards. And that is a report where we are required to communicate any significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, or non-compliance that we find throughout the audit. And happily, we did not find any such instances. So that is what that report says, that there were no reportable findings. Past that, I'm just going to hit some of the highlights on the financial statements themselves. I have pulled out tables to go into this presentation, hopefully to make it a little easier to read, but I do also have pulled up the actual statement. So if you want to see those, I can bring them onto the screen. But this is table A1. It's in the MD&A, and it just provides the comparison of financial statement balances for the government-wide assets, liabilities, and net position. The city of Rome ended September 30, 2021 with net assets of $4.5 million. That's up about $160,000 from this time last year. It was $4.4 million. Overall assets increased, but liabilities increased also. The biggest change in your assets is going to be your fixed asset, capital asset additions, and cash decreased as a result of that. So big water sewer improvement projects increased your capital assets, decreased your cash. And the other big kind of noteworthy change is here in current liabilities. You'll see that that went up to $934,000 versus $247,000 this time last year. There are a couple reasons for that. First, in the governmental activities, so that's going to be your general fund and all your governmental funds. There's a big jump here because the city received funds from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan Act, and most of those funds were not spent at the end of the year. So about $218,000 is sitting there as a liability, basically to be spent because those funds are really restricted in what they can be spent for. They're recorded as a liability until they're spent for those appropriate purposes. And the other item is in the business type activities. There's a big jump here, and that is really due to retainage payable. That's the amount that's withheld from a contractor during an ongoing project until everybody agrees the project is done, and then at which time you would release the retainage. So that's not true AP like a normal AP, but actually retainage for your big projects. Moving to just looking, kind of highlighting the general fund and their budget to actual. So this is looking at budget original and final, the actual amount, and then that fourth column shows our variance from the final budget. Overall revenues were $2.1 million actual. That was a little higher than budget, about $50,000 higher than budget. And the two biggest variances were up in tax revenue, as you can see. It's $109,000 higher. There's a big piece of that, about $150,000 is actually sales tax revenue, which was significantly higher than budget, offset a little bit by property tax revenue. I think a budget adjustment was a little higher than what those tax revenues actually brought in. And then in that bottom line, the other revenues, that one is quite a bit over budget, and that is primarily due to developer contributions. You had a big project that you worked with a developer on, split I believe a street addition, some of those projects, and so there was some revenue associated with that. Looking down into the expenditure.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I'm just gonna interrupt. So that was the Iron Horse Court project where we did a 380 agreement with the developer, and they paid for half of that. The owners of the road, the owners of the company paid for half of that project, and we pay for half, and it's our road to maintain. So that's what she's referring to.
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. So then looking down into expenditures, total expenditures were $27,000 under budget. Under budget. And there were a couple of departments that were over budget. One is administration, which was primarily due to higher than anticipated legal fees. And then the other one is municipal court, which also was some legal fees and supplies that went over budget. Looking to the next one, just kind of a focus on your water and sewer fund. This is a comparison of current year versus prior year and the change thereon. Our total operating revenues in your water fund were $986,000, which is down about $26,000 from last year. And then your operating expenses are about $1.26 million versus $1.22 million, so up about $40,000. And then also your non-operating had about a $33,000 change. Most of that is in a decline in investment income. As the rates went down, so did the investment income that the city received. And so all of that resulted in a change in net position, a loss of about $357,000, which is a loss that's higher than last year's loss by about $100,000. And as we saw after these couple of years of big losses, just to point it out here, the water and sewer fund is now sitting in a position where unrestricted net assets, unrestricted net position is negative. And we really need that to be, ideally probably about 3 months of expenses. So that needs to come up. So that's something that probably needs to be looked at and addressed via water rates or expense reduction to try to build that balance back up. Past that then is just to look at your pension liability. Actually, the city has a net pension asset, which means that the assets held at TMRS accumulated for the city's pension exceed the amount that's projected to be the liability. Right now, that is a pension asset of $157,000. Although that is subject to change, these pension figures are have a lot of estimates in them, and so the best thing and really the only real thing the city has to do with that is to continue to pay the rate that TMRS provides, which y'all have done, and I believe that's the plan going forward as well, which is a good plan. And those are the financial items that I really plan to cover. Does anybody have any questions on those specifically, or want me to go into any of that in more detail? Okay, so past that are just there's another, in addition to the report that you got, there's also a letter. It's called, we call it the letter to those charged with governance, which is City Council. And there are basically just some items that we are required to communicate to you. And that's what that letter is, and here's kind of a summary of it. And it just says that we didn't have note any significant unusual transactions. We didn't have any issues or difficulties or disagreements with management. The report does include significant estimates, which is a required kind of a part of the process of creating financial statements. And I've listed the examples of what we consider a significant estimate. And those are really common for cities. It's really just to make you aware. And then the last bullet point is that we did have an audit adjustment, and it was just to move that American Rescue Plan Act funding to that unearned liability account so that revenue can be recognized as it is spent in future years. And that is really my planned items to point out and discuss with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I just wanted to see, Valerie, would you, tell me what page of the report that you provided, the fund balance, beginning fund balance and ending fund balance, can you discuss that, please?
For the water sewer fund?
General fund.
General fund, okay. I'm going to pull that over.
I'm trying to find that page.
Just a minute. Is that the one you're looking for, Cynthia?
What page is that?
It's PDF page 20 or printed page 16.
Yeah, if you just want to discuss that, is all I was pointing out, because I do have questions on that, and I know when I came to the city, I had questions on, beginning fund balance, and ending fund balance.
Okay, so just to kind of explain how this flows, so this is a statement that is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your governmental funds. So this provides, the revenues are basically the sources of funds for the governmental funds, and then the expenditures, so what you're spending money on in the budget. And then you have here, this is called an excess or deficiency of revenues over under expenditures. Basically, it's the difference between your revenue and your expenses. So in the general fund, you had what amounts to an excess of revenue of about $160,000 compared to your expenses for the 2021 year. And then you did have a transfer that moved some money over to the CIP fund, and that closed out the CIP fund. It ends at zero fund balance here. And then this right here, this fund balance beginning, that is the amount that the city had at 9/30/2020. So that's where you started the year. You had $828,000 in beginning fund balance. And then we add what our change was, our access was this year, and that gets us to $980,000 at the end of September 2021. And so that $980,000, then if we go back up to our governmental funds balance sheet, you'll see that $980,000 right here, which is our total fund balance. And so that essentially equals our assets minus our liabilities minus this deferred inflow gets to our total fund balance. And then there are these components of fund balance. So this top number here is prepaid expenses. That is what we call unspendable, because that is, we have paid cash for something that's going to provide us a future service, but we have no cash on hand for it. We've already dispersed the money. And then we have these items that are restricted for certain purposes, which means that the city's hands are basically tied on how that money is spent. City council, city management, no one can choose because an outside party has restricted them for these specific reasons, like court restrictions, police seizure, national night out. So those are not available for general spending. And then there's unassigned, which is the fund balance that is available for general spending at the city's discretion. And so that's what we'll carry forward to the next year. Does that cover, Cynthia, what you were wanting me to cover?
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Halverson, so just so I'm fully clear on what you just said. We're sitting just shy of 1 million. Is that what you said on what is unrestricted right now?
It's this $817,116.
Okay, so
That
closer to
unassigned right
800,000.
there. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
perfect.
And
And
that's
then
in
my
the
only other
general fund.
okay, and then
So
my
in the
only other
water and sewer fund,
question.
it's negative. Yeah.
Okay, my only other question was on the bond debt, and what I was reading is that sitting right at, I think you said 3.9 million for total bond debt.
So, yep, it's about 3.9 million. So here's our
Okay.
long-term debt due within 1 year and then due within more than 1 year. You add those together, and that says
Okay.
total long-term.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any
Anything
other
else?
questions?
We may have some later on. I think we all got this about noon today. So right now, I think that may be. Anybody else have a question?
I just had a couple of questions that we were over, why we over budgeted, but there's just a few questions on municipal court. We were negative on
So let me
funds and stuff.
answer as you have them. So municipal court with COVID, the municipal court fines, the tongue twister, were down.
Yes.
And so, when we develop the budget, we look at trends. So we look at what has been and we try to project what is coming. And so that's what we did. We over projected the revenue.
Yeah, that one was down 28,905. Permits.
What page are you on?
Page 39.
Okay.
That one was down. And then permits was 38,667.
And that was due to, again, I think we were thinking Rolling V was going to come online sooner than expected. So that's, I think, what you see the discrepancy there is.
Fire revenue was 14,342. Impound fees was 1,099. Sorry, my son's school's going on.
Well, fire revenue was down because of COVID again, and they did not do their boot drive.
Okay.
And there was a grant that they had applied for that did not come through.
Okay, which total services was 15,441. Fire department grants 16,845. Police grants 1,500. Total intergovernmental grant revenues $8,093 is negative total. And then you keep going. Fire department $22,540 total donation and fundraisers. So we're negative $21,997. So I'm just going through these. Expenditures, personnel fees, $59,518. I'm just going over what I found was the negative.
Okay.
Total administration.
Yeah, and I was just, as you were going, I was trying to give explanations, but I'll let you just go.
No, okay, we'll go back up. So if you want to.
Well, I've given you the explanations on the everything through the fire, but.
Okay, so, all right, so we did donations. Okay, I understand fire. Okay, then administration for 63,132. So.
And the majority of that is in legal. professional fees, which is legal and engineering. And as you all know, we've been doing a lot of work, and I've given you guys some graphs on those expenditures, and we've quantified what those legal expenditures are on. We've done a lot of updating of ordinances, and that's really heavy into the legal review because we need legal to review that. We also have had a lot of developments, developer agreements, and even though developers agreements do pay for the legal, there's still a lot of activity right now with development. So, and then I will say, there's a lot of, I've given you that chart on categorizing why that is. Now, one of the things that I've instituted last year, probably, I guess, midway through the fiscal year, was having Carvin only come to the first meeting. Because the meetings, if you remember in that chart I provided you, council meetings were the biggest expense. And so we have reduced the legal expenses in that area for him only attending one. Also, having him attend online is obviously much cheaper as well because it's time. I'm sorry?
No travel time.
Travel time, correct, sir.
No travel time, and we call him a lot. So, page 40, building development capital outlay, but maybe she just spoke on that one. $67,710. So, and then professional municipal court.
Well, again, that is that 380 agreement.
380
So
agreement. So I think
that's
that was
actually, we were able to work with the businesses out there, and they contributed half of the cost of maintaining that roadway, which is ours to maintain. So.
And then the interest rate on one of our bonds, is there anything, I know we talked about it with, I think his name's Bill. Is there anything we can do? I know that you said something about our interest rates prior. You're really good about that to see.
Well, 2016 was refinanced.
There was one of them I was looking at. I tried to. It was hard getting it today in the midst of it a short notice and trying to look over everything. But I was looking over one of our obligation bonds that we could probably get a better interest rate on it. I don't know, but maybe if you can look further into it, Sam.
Well, I have talked to the financial advisors, and even if the interest rates, I'd be interested in hearing which one you were referring to. But I definitely talked with John, but a lot of times, even if it's a little bit lower than, what our current rate is, and even if the rate right now is a little bit lower, depending on, the refunding cost, sometimes it begins to be a wash. So, but I will definitely ask him about that. Certainly with the 2019 bond, that would be one to look at. The 2016 bond and the 2017 bond will be rolling off the books in 24 and 25 respectively. So then the only bond we will have is the 2019 bond, which was $2.6 million.
All right, that was my. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, are you ready to let this lady go?
Sure. Yeah, if you guys don't have any other questions, thank you, Bill and Valerie. I appreciate it.
Do you need a motion to accept that?
We do need a motion to accept it, yes.
Once we go to the final audit, yes. And I thought this lady may not need to stay through it all. Okay, are we ready to make a motion, or does anybody want more time to review it?
I move that we accept the audit.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second that we accept the audit. Hey Sam, don't rush me. Okay, let's hear a voice vote.
Aye.
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 Anyone not for it? Okay, Valerie, we're going to accept the audit.
All right. Thank you all very much for your time tonight.
Okay, we're moving now to item J, discussion and any necessary action regarding a schedule of fees update. And Cynthia, that has you tagged again.
Thank you, Mayor. If you guys will remember, in 2020, staff did a lot of work combining all the fees into a comprehensive fee schedule, creating a new chapter, and that is going to save us time, excuse me, over the long haul, and we don't have to go in and find all these outdated fees sprinkled out through our code of ordinances. So the practice of many cities is on an annual basis to review those fees and make sure they're still appropriate. Staff does look at what other cities are charging. Staff, sometimes these issues come up. I will give one that came up last year as an example. We didn't have solar panels, for instance, for building permits and all that. And so last year we added solar panels. So, as we move forward and things come to light, we will look at those, and if a fee is appropriate, we'll add those. And so that's what you have before you. Councilmember Easton?
Any discussion on the fee? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chief Fitch, I'm looking at a private fire hydrant fee of $150. We have an option to get our own fire hydrants?
Yes, you do. But there's the permit fee. It's got to go through Public Works and through fire and all that other. But there is a permit fee on that. But a lot of that is based off commercial businesses. When commercial businesses come in, they usually have to do a loops type system, and Sean can add to it if he needs to, but they usually do a loop type system, or they'll put a private system on there, and it's usually based off of that. But it's more usually commercial, but there has been residentials with private.
I'm thinking it would be a handy thing if the house caught fire, if I had a fire hydrant in my front yard.
There's some things we'd have to look at because it would be considered private.
Right. I mean, so the permit's $150. What does it cost to have one put in?
That's probably about 10% of what it would probably cost. It's pretty expensive because
plan review, and then also it'll be your private contractor installing it. So we don't have a cost because it'll be your personal line, and fire hydrants will be your cost of what it being installed. It's just a permit fee through us, through them, and all that stuff.
And that fee is based off of us having to verify through the plans review that it would be something that was workable on our system coming off as a private hydrant. If that makes sense.
Ballpark figure, or close to 10 grand.
That's what I'm saying. It's that permit fee is about 10% of what the actual cost for the person who is trying to put a private hydrant in.
I think you said more of 100 times, not 10 times.
Did you say 10,000?
It depends how far you want to put the fire hydrant.
Yeah.
Check valve.
I understand. It's just, I just saw a private fire hydrant 150. It's like, shoot, I'll take two.
Keep in mind.
You got to pay a contractor to do it.
Yeah. Keep in mind there's when you look at the fees for the fire that has been put on the the fee schedule of fees, they're based off of, it's not just $150 because you're going to need an inspection or you need to do something. There's some things in there. So like if you pay $150 for, let's say, a sprinkler fee or a permit, you're getting an inspection with that. Sometimes there's even additional inspection because of the wiring system that has to be inspected before the pump and everything's completed and stuff like that. So it's not just we're asking somebody for $150 if they want to do something. There's city involvement in that as well.
I understand that the fees are, if you will, the minimum cost.
You're just wanting a private hydrant.
But it seems like 150 is awfully low. Because I would think that there'd be a lot of testing and inspection and such that would go into it. So.
Yes, but we're talking about the initial, the permit to do it, and then the inspection of it. But the annual inspections and all that, that's part of the city's cost.
Okay, thank you.
Well, any other questions for fire while I'm up here?
just point out a few. For instance, one of the updates, if you look at your chart, we did put the section, the item, what current proposed, and then the justification. But for instance, if you remember, we shut down the impoundment, the towing in PD, and so we're taking that out of the ordinance since it's no longer appropriate. So sometimes it's just things like that that we're updating.
Anyone else have a question?
I do. Okay. What on the late fees? The $20, $20 or 10%, which is greater? Late charge proposed. Can we do the $20? Which one? Except for the water?
The minimum charge is $20, which is greater. So the minimum, if you have a $50 late bill, you're still going to get a $20 late charge because the cost of utility billing that has to go through the process of doing to rectify and come up with that, and then also the public works employees to have to door tag those houses cost more than $20 technically to go to do this process. So the minimum charge is $20 or 10%. So if your bill is $300, it's going to be $30. So that's why it's to recoup the cost that city employees are incurring to do the job for people not paying their water bills. There's some water bills out there for $500-600 for residential bills, and again, it's a constant thing that we are spending a lot of man hours and time, and that we need to recoup this cost.
I think it should just be a flat rate of $20 like other cities instead of the percentage rate.
Well, we looked at various cities, and this is other cities also do $20 the minimum or up to 10%, because also you have commercial properties that could have $2,000 or $3,000 bill, and again, we still have to go through the process, and they should be charged for the late fees.
Right. So can we put $20 for residential only, or I guess, all right, I'm beating a dead horse. So.
Well, and just as a reminder, these fees, staff works hard to look at what other cities are and make sure we're in line with other cities. It's really just about covering staff admin time. And that's the goal. It's not trying to make a buck at all. It's just trying to cover our cost. And for too long, we just haven't done that.
Okay, and another one that I saw on here is, hold on, why didn't we put on, is the $6 for the, hold on, $6 for open records. Can you clarify?
That is on PD.
Okay.
So they had one for reports, but they did not have one for open records. So we did that, but that was to clarify what that is. And so we still have the one for reports, and it's $6, and this is open records, specifically for $6, same amount.
But only for PD.
Well, PD is, different. Then.
Well, I know, but the $6 is only for PD.
Correct.
It doesn't have anything to do with administrative open records.
Right, at City Hall, correct. There is a fee, but we're not proposing a change on that.
Anybody else have any comments? Does anyone want to make any changes?
I make a motion that we approve the update of the schedule of fees.
Can we have a motion and a second to approve what has been presented to us?
Who
Elaine,
seconded?
do you
I
have?
believe you already have a motion in a second.
They said it too close to me.
Okay. So we want to vote on that. All in favor of keeping what's there?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously. So we're going to move on now to discussion and necessary action regarding House Bill 2840. Elaine, that is you.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me? Okay. One of the The reason I brought this up is so that we can have clarity that there's already an existing ordinance that the city has that's reflective of this particular House bill. And so the things that I have put on this piece of paper for discussion, and that's all that is points of discussion if we want to do that. Um, Basically, our ordinances are reflective of that already. But when we do our agenda, we really don't have very much of that on the agenda so folks can see it, read it, and understand what our House bill is about, and also what the city has decided uh, to approach that House bill through our ordinance. So what I'd like to see is a little more information on our agenda that's reflective then of the ordinance that already exists. Some of this is taken directly from the House bill. Some of it is taken from wording that other cities have has used, also reflective of the House bill. And so I'd just like to help folks understand that when we get to the city presentation, that there are things that the city council and the mayor and the administrative staff can respond to if it's a non-agenda item, and I've listed that on here. A lot of times we take a lot of information from the public and we know that what they're saying is incomplete or is not correct. And it's been our practice just not to say anything. Well, then that looks to the general public like what has just been said is factual. And so we do have the right to correct information, even if it's a non-agenda item. We can't discuss it, but we can respond in a certain order, which is here. The other thing is that there's clarity on that public comments cannot insult, abuse, malign, or slander an individual during the presentation. And if that occurs, then we as a council can stop that at that time, tell them that their time is up, and more than that, we can ask them to leave the chamber. So this is not new information. It's part of our ordinance, but I would like us to consider adding a little more of the verbiage onto the agenda, and then before we get to the public comment section, then the mayor read that so that we're sure that everybody understands that it's not a free-for-all. This is a business meeting. This is not about all about, we're never all going to agree on everything, and so there's differences of opinion, but abusive and getting out of line and all that kind of stuff. We need to get past that and get on with our business. We have plenty to do without all of that. So I would present this as a discussion piece of paper, and to see what you guys think about it. Like I said, it would take a motion on our part to add it to the agenda, whatever we decide, but it's already a part of our ordinance. It already exists. So,
Can I read the last paragraph of House Bill 2840, subparagraph E? A governmental body may not prohibit public criticism of the governmental body, including criticism of any act, omission, policy, procedures, program, or service. This subsection does not apply to public criticism that is otherwise prohibited by law.
and that is correct. But folks, criticism doesn't have to be insulting. It doesn't have to be abusive. It doesn't have to malign. or slander people in so doing. And so it's fine to say, I really didn't appreciate what you did there. I really wish you would have done something else. Um, Maybe you guys needed to research it more, something like that. But for somebody to say, you know what, um, uh, you're just a stupid fool, and I really wish that you weren't on the city council, or something like that. That gets into a different category. That's called abuse, and it's okay to discuss business and say you don't agree. But it's another thing to be insulting and abusive, and just and slanderous. And we've heard some of that. And so this is just like I said, these things already exist. I would just like to see more information on the agenda, and before we um, open the public comment section, then that this be read so that it's clear. It's clarity for everybody, us, whoever's conducting the meeting, and for those that are about to speak.
What exactly were you wanting to put on there? What
Well,
wording?
this is like just for discussion. I just put, to put some of the stamps. The first three items are really already, on there. So we'd only be adding number 4. Um, I just want you to know that we have the right to respond on non-agenda items, which I already mentioned a while ago. But also, as the city council, we do not have to allow anyone to speak on non-agenda items. We can restrict it to only items that are on the agenda. Now, do we need to go that far? That's that's part of the discussion. So I'm not saying that that's what we should do. I'm just telling you that it's an option.
Um, Mrs. Priest, I don't think we should go that far. I think they should
I was
still.
hoping that I was not in favor of it myself, but I was just presenting what was there.
How do you propose that we enforce this?
Well, the enforcement falls to the person that is in charge of the meeting. And that would be the mayor. But if the mayor doesn't step up and do that, then we have the right to wait till that person sits down, and then we have the right to respond if we're going to if we want to do item 1, 2, and 3, make a comment or whatever. If they're out of line and they're abusive and they're insulting, then we have the right to stop them right then, and then we have the right to uh, ask they be removed from the chamber. Hopefully, we don't see any more of that. But I'm just saying. But I do think it needs to be put out there that that's what happens if people misbehave.
Sorry.
I was just going to direct you. If you look at your agenda, I mean, items 1, 2, and 3 on what Councilmember Priest provided, and even 4, the first half of 4 are already on the agenda, either under the public presentation and input or the first page under consent
Talking
item,
about
for
the item
example.
K, public comments PDF, it's separate. You've got 1 through 5 in Roman numerals. Is that what you
Yes,
prefer?
what Councilmember Priest, Roman numerals 1 through 5. If
Thank
you
you.
look 1, 2, 3, and first half of 4 are already on the agenda. Yes. Oh, I didn't know they were. Okay, I thought she was asking a question.
Here, you can. Okay.
Okay.
So that was my purpose is that, what I was just trying to convey, that I think we can share a little more information uh, uh, and help us have meetings that move on and stay focused on that this is a business session. And we do want to hear from our citizens, but at the same time, we have there's just certain behavior that we need to make sure that that's what we do.
Which I think that is what we do need to do, but we don't need to take the right away from a citizen to get up there and speak from their heart and to write down if that, if on the agenda it's carports, but for instance, if Jerry wants to come up here and speak about her church, that's not what we should do.
No, and that's what it's
Correct,
we
but
can still have non-agenda items.
correct. That's what we need to do. But then looking at other cities and breaking it down, the mayor is still in control, can stop the meeting. We can take a recess. That's what I went to, looking at, breaking it down, the decorum, sorry, types of, we could go into further of what the meeting could be. Yes, on that January 22nd meeting, it got a little out of hand, but it got a little out of hand, but everybody spoke. We're going to have a new one. Some agreed, liked it. But hopefully things will change in going forward. Maybe see what can happen. But
Well, like I said, we wouldn't be changing anything.
hey,
All we're doing is sharing a little bit more information about how our ordinance is in place and what and it's supported by the Bill 2840.
right, which going through it, it says government leaders must allow an individual who wishes to comment on any agenda item be able to do so during a public meeting. The government leaders cannot prohibit from an individual from criticizing them during a public meeting. We need to show transparency to our citizens and the government, letting our citizens speak out. We need to let our citizens speak out to us so we can move forward to make the changes. That's just some of the bullet points. So it's also the freedom of speech. That's just some of them.
I don't think
They can speak out and they can criticize, but they need to do it respectfully. I think there's a way that you can do that, and you can disagree with people, but do it respectfully.
Right.
I don't understand why people can't.
Hey, there was a lot. There was even somebody that you know very well that spoke out against myself and the mayor, that spoke out even the next meeting afterwards, that looked at the mayor
I'm pretty sure
straightforward.
that wasn't being disrespectful, though.
But hey, let's move forward. Maybe things are changed. Everybody's been told no, so they're adults. Hopefully things will change. You've told today, I don't want to take their powers away. We've made that clear. I don't want to take their powers away.
I don't think anyone is suggesting that we take away their right to free speech.
That's
I
what's
don't-
concerning me.
I don't believe that's being suggested at all, is it, Mrs. Priest?
No, and matter of fact, this is already a part of our ordinance and it's part of the bill. So we don't have the right to take away freedom of speech, and that's not what this is about at all. This is strictly about sharing the information that already exists in our ordinance and the House bill. So let's don't belabor this. My suggestion is that we add the second part of Roman numeral 4 and that we add Roman numeral 5 and that we don't pay any attention to the option that the city council has the right to restrict discussion of the public comment section to only agenda items. I think we all agree we don't want to do that, and so we're not going to go there. So that's all I'm asking, is that we expand that little area and that before public comment starts, that the mayor then read these items so it's clear, because a lot of people don't read what's there, or maybe they just skim it, but that way it's clear uh, how we're going to conduct the public comment section. And I would also suggest that this be done on whether it's a city council meeting, a forum, or a workshop. This needs to be on the agenda for all three of those things.
Can we table it at night? Because there's another city close to us that has the city council procedures and decorum policy that I think that you would really like to look over, that you read over it and see, because I bet that they've had the same problem that we have, and go over it and maybe pull stuff from it and maybe we could utilize. It's very interesting and very helpful.
Go ahead and read it to us.
Oh, it's long.
Read quickly.
It's 13 pages, but I'll let Elaine read it.
Well, I don't think we need 13 pages.
But no, it's 13. But no, I read through it today, and I don't read that fast. But it's 13, but it's really helpful, and that's what I pulled from. And it's where it says if they're not doing it, we take a recess where the mayor can stop the meeting, and if not, that the mayor pro tem. I mean, it's very helpful, and I think that that could be very useful for our city. So.
And I think we've got to be very, very careful about freedom of speech. And that probably covers that, you know.
Well, if as long as the state of Texas says that there's rules that we follow, then there's no freedom of speech violation. We're following those rules of this House bill.
I think we just need to look further, and I think this would benefit us before and going forward on a meeting. Can we table it to the next meeting? Let Cynthia look it over, let Carvin and Elaine, if you look further into this about a decorum, I would like to table this.
I don't think what Elaine is asking for is in any way unreasonable, because as she's pointed out, 1, 2, 3, and most of 4 is already part of the ordinance. So what we're looking at is adding a council member or mayor may, 1, make a statement of fact regarding the item, 2, make a statement concerning the policy regarding the item, or 3, propose that the item be placed on a future agenda. Not unreasonable, because if someone is stating something that is untrue, then let's go ahead and get it corrected right there on the spot. I think that's reasonable. 5, a statement of no more than 3 minutes may be made. That's already part of the ordinance. There will be no yielding of time to another person. Comments should be directed to the entire council, not individual members. Engaging in verbal attacks or comments intended to insult, abuse, malign, or slander any individual shall be cause for termination or time privileges and removal from council chambers. None of those things are unreasonable, because none of that is saying you can't speak on any particular topic. You still have the right to speak on anything you wish. All it's saying is, let's be respectful to each other. Please.
Thanks, Sam. So reading the House bill and listening to y'all talk about this, one thing I've noticed that I don't think we've discussed yet is through the whole House bill, it states governing body. A governing body can be criticized. People can speak out about the governing body. But the definition of a governing body is a group of people that has the authority to exercise governance over an organization or political entity, binding decisions in a taken geopolitical system by establishing laws. To me, the governing body is the elected officials of this town. That excludes staff, personnel, and everybody else that's not elected. Therefore, to me, the way I listen to this House bill, it is people don't need to be standing up here criticizing and attacking our personnel. They need to stay away from our city administrator. They need to stay away from attacking our public works director and anyone else that is not an elected official. They can still criticize, as Sam just mentioned, the whole council as a whole, but not attack anyone individually. I don't think we're looking at stopping people from talking. We're not looking at censoring the freedom of speech. We're simply stating that people need to be aware of, and we need to make people aware at the beginning that this is the law, this is the procedures, and make them aware of what we can and can't say in this situation. So to me, we got to remember it's against the governing body, not everyone.
Well, I would like to respond to what Ashley suggested. I don't think it hurts us in any form if we want to go ahead and take action with this because it's, like I've already said about 5 times maybe, it's already a part of our ordinance. It's already a part of the House bill. And so to just share the information in the agenda, we're not changing anything that doesn't already exist. Then we could, I would love to read that because it sounds like that they've set out a whole procedure and which probably we don't have a 13-page procedure. But I'm just saying there's not anything that would prevent us then if there's some things that we're not doing that we need to take action on, then we could incorporate that. But all I'm asking for is to put a little bit more of our ordinance on the piece of paper. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking to change any interpretation to restrict anybody from saying what they want to say, other than they're going to have to do it respectfully. And they cannot attack our staff. They cannot attack any individual, like you said, all through House Bill 2840. It is governing body is the language that's used there. So
Cynthia,
that's my request.
sorry, Cynthia, is this something that would take a motion to add information to the agenda, or is this simple direction to the staff?
I would make a motion, and just so it's clear. The other thing I would like to add, and is to Councilmember Major's point, this is a best practice that is common across all city councils, locally, down south, to the west, to the east, outside of Texas, and it's just setting the expectation for what the rules of decorum are within that chamber, whether it's a council meeting, whether it's a court of law. The judge sets those expectations. So these are common. So to your point, you can go to, I would challenge anyone, and I can go and bring them to you if you would like, but many city council agendas have this on their page as Council Member Priest is proposing. So it is very common to have that done. And I will say, if you remember back in 2020 when I first got here, put together a council orientation booklet for you guys, for new council members, existing council members. One of the things I discussed with the mayor at that time, and we just didn't have time to do it, was rules of decorum. Because they are so common, having those, just that's the expectation. So you can have civil and respectful debate on city business.
Ms. Priest, do you have a motion?
Okay. I make a motion that we accept items 1, 2, 3, 4, but not the option under number 4 and then number 5. And like I said, we can always change this, but I think we need to take action on that.
And that's to be added to the agenda and read before each meeting?
That's correct. And then that's, of course, just like always, it needs to be enforced by the mayor because the mayor is who is in charge of our meetings.
I second.
Do we have any more discussion? I'm sorry, I like to lean back in my chair. Do we have any more discussion from anybody? Or are we ready to take a vote?
I want to table it to go into more discussion. So I'm not in favor. I want to table it.
Okay. Any more discussion? So what are we voting on is to add the items that Elaine mentioned by number to our existing agenda. Am I understanding exactly what we're to do? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So we have 4-1, so the motion passed. And we got to move along. That took 25 minutes of our time. It is now 8:35, so we got to keep this show on the road. The next one has to do with discussion and necessary action concerning the structure of the next citizens forum. Elaine, that be you again.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Um, we've already scheduled that event for March the 19th, and I talked about that the last meeting, so I'm not going to go over all of that stuff again. But just to remind everybody that this forum is exclusive to facilities and not anything else. And the things that I mentioned that uh, folks might be thinking about and brainstorming with us. Do we remodel what we have, or are we going to try to build something new? Uh, I'm, I'm glad that we're looking at what Council Member Major suggested, having appraisal done on the entirety of the school property and like that, because that is an option for us. We ought to think about not only the renovation, we need to look at space and think about it in terms of not just this year, but we need to look at it probably in terms of 10, 15 years, like that. We need to look at if we're going to try to relocate and sell the school property, then where might that be? When you think about parking, uh, whichever option that as we look at these options, parking has got to be part of that. Of course, ADA is always, once we start doing whatever we're going to do, we have to do those things anyway. So that's pretty standard. So we just need to look at, and we just can't look at one building. We have to look at all of the buildings, because all of the buildings are not compliant and need help. So we just can't just pick one out. We've got to have a bigger plan than that. It doesn't mean we would execute it all at one time. It just means that we just have to have a big plan and then figure out what we want to attack on that. And then, of course, there's the financial aspect of it. So as people come in and we talk about the facilities and we brainstorm and talk about, well, what if we do this and what if we do that, then we're going to take great notes and we're going to look at those. And I really like what Shirley Meese brought in. I said that wrong. I'm so sorry. She came in with printed information. She had a vision for the atmosphere of what she wanted the town to look like, and she had some other information that was there. That is helpful information, and it was part of the vision that she has. And I think she's going to find that a lot of people have kind of a similar vision, and so that was refreshing to see that from her. So anyway, I just want to be clear that my impression is that it's going to be strictly facilities, not anything else, and that we brainstorm about these things and we'll take good notes. Any supporting information that's suggestions that people want to make, if they've got some stuff in writing, then that helps us then build a file for that. So that's my thoughts on that meeting.
Ms. Priest, with that, I know Shirley brought that information out, and that was a good read. I do also want to encourage and let people know that you can bring those reviews or those writings to us, but you can also, if you want to put together PowerPoints or presentations, you're more than welcome to do that. We just ask that you turn those into City Hall. Is it 3 days before the meeting to verify the safety of the electronic device for the system? So we asked if you bring it in 3 days before the meeting, that way city staff can make sure that there's no kind of bugs or anything with the software, and they can pull it up on the video for everybody to see. So yes, definitely bring information if you got it, solutions, that would be great. Whatever you might think would be a solution. I think that'd be good.
Is everybody in agreement with that? And give me the date again and let's see, it's going to be
19th. March
March 19th,
9 to 11, 9 a.m. to 11.
9 to 11.
And,
So
and
has to work.
also with that 9 to 11, we will strive to do that, but I don't want, personally, I don't want to cut anybody off just because it's 11 o'clock and not everybody's had their turn to speak or do their presentation. So that is a goal, but we're not shut the door at 11 if not everybody's had a chance to speak.
But I think we can just more or less post this time,
Right.
and like we had to do last time.
Yeah, it's a
we had to
guide.
extend.
We'd love to keep it to 2 hours, but I just hope that we have a passel of people here and lots of fresh ideas, and so I don't mind staying till noon.
Thank you so much, Elaine. That was very refreshing. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move on.
And real quick, I'm sorry, I don't think we want to limit it to just the residents, but business owners as well, because we'd love to hear.
Anybody.
Right, anybody that's got
I mean,
ideas.
it could be Cousin Charlie if he had an idea.
Right,
You know,
we'll take anybody's opinions or thoughts on it. So.
Right, Okay, we're moving on to item M, discussion regarding the ownership of the old school property. Councilperson Ty.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the information on Facebook and kind of give everybody an idea of the documents we have. I have some up here, but they're so small that you might not be able to see. I've quoted some of the letters that we have in our possession, but the city and 3 attorneys, including Mr. Atkins, they researched the information and all came to the same conclusion: the city owns the property. I would like to go over these documents we have in our possession. The item that has been posted on Facebook several times is a warranty deed from 1910. It says that it is understood and agreed the present ground now occupied by a school building revert back to Morrison heirs. This first letter that's up here is Mr. Atkins' letter. He's our city attorney. And it says this 1910 deed, has been reviewed multiple times by multiple real estate experts. And to quote the letter from Mr. Atkins, experts have all concluded that the potential cloud on the city's title to the old school property is unfounded. Bottom line, city title to the old school property is clean and has been insured by the title policy purchased from Wise County Title Company when the property was acquired by the city in 1992. In 1992, the land and buildings were purchased by the city from Northwest ISD. The second letter is from attorney Kenneth McAllister. He also stated that when the city purchased the property in 92, it was issued a title policy ensuring fee simple ownership in the city. That is the backstop and insurance for the city of Rome. The title company examined the records and determined that Northwest ISD owned the property before it issued the title policy. The third letter is from an attorney Collister. Also, he reviewed these documents, and he concluded, and I quote, the possibility of reverter language as set forth in the deed is incomplete to create a possibility of reverter. There is no event, action, or condition described, such as, in quotes, when the property is no longer used for a school building, which would trigger the possibility of reverter. The language drafted is, in my opinion, meaningless and unenforceable. That's the attorney, not my opinion, the attorney's opinion. The next picture is a survey. When the property was purchased from Northwest ISD in 92, this survey was completed. And as you can see, Taco Casa is in that corner. But the city of Rome owned that property. So if we had an issue with the conveyance of a good title, Taco Casa couldn't have bought that property from the city. Another issue was, and that's the next one, Schedule B of the 92 title policy. and it questioned the paragraph 3 of Schedule B of the 92 title policy. It refers to a lien retained by Northwest ISD as a vendor's lien in the 92 transaction. Research indicated that the lien was released by a release filed on June 12, 1996, and it's in volume 659, page 716, if anybody wants to go find that. All of this information is open records. You can get everything. So that's all I kind of wanted to discuss was that little miscommunication when it came to the 1910 deed.
Thank you, Michelle. Does anyone have any questions? Sam, you look like you have
I
one.
do. So does this mean we can finally put this to bed and quit discussing it? Thank you.
I don't know about that, but I hope so.
That was the object, right? Okay, so I don't think there's any action we can take on that other than tell Michelle thank you for researching and bringing this to the front. We're now moving to N, discussion and any necessary action regarding establishment of a city-supported public communication site. And Elaine, that's got you down again.
Right. I just would like to see the city, and this will take some brainstorming and some work out some logistics, but I would like to see us have a city-supported website or email or whatever, however we would do that. But when citizens have a question, and let's just use what Councilmember Ty was just talking about. They have a question. The question is, does the city truly own the school? They can ask that question, and then staff can respond to that question with factual information and refer to maybe the letter that has the comprehensive letter that has come with that opinion from those three attorneys. But then, so that would be a way for folks to get factual information that they have concerns about, and it would not be political information. It would be factual information. The other thing is, it would also be a place where they could say, "I'm concerned about closing the alleyway behind my house." That's something that we talked about at the last meeting. Then they can report or make a suggestion as to what their concern is. And then once again, back with factual information, not rumors, not gossip, not hearsay, not this is what I think. This is factual information. And I would also like for us to have that, and then have a time limit for that response to be posted. It wouldn't be one-on-one where it would be out in the public so that the public can see the questions that have been asked and the responses that have been made, because more than one person may have that same question, and to be able to see that response, and then that would be a way. We've talked about doing this in the past, and about the time that we get going talking about it, then it seems like every time we get going good, there's another major COVID setback, or we have I call it the freeze from hell that we had last year, or something. It seems like that we just have these ongoing distractions that come up. But I'm not saying that we need to take action on that tonight. That's food for thought. I'd like for us to do that. I think it's a positive way. I think our citizens need a spot where they can come to and get the attention that they need for their questions and concerns.
Who would you envision to answer such as that? I don't think Cynthia didn't hold her hand up. I think she's kind of loaded.
Well,
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the theory.
Don't gasp here when I say this. At first, a long time ago, I suggested that the mayor could do that, and then it could be reviewed by the staff. And now I've kind of reversed that, thinking that it needs to be someone in the staff and then someone on the city council review that, so that there is a balance there before that information goes out. Um, and so I don't have it all figured out. That's why I bring it to the council to discuss. But I do think it's a communication link that is important in this community. I hear incessantly the word transparency, and so it's a good way to be transparent. And yes, it's going to take some effort, and I don't have the perfect plan. I just want us to talk about it, think about it, because I truly believe that it can be helpful in the long run.
Okay, so we've heard that. Y'all think about it. We got to come back again March the 10th. We might want to discuss it then.
Real quick, what kind of questions are you asking? Like, give me an example. Like, what question? Like an open records request? Like,
No.
just every open request, or?
No, it's not an open records request. The example I just gave a few minutes ago is I might sign in there and say, does the city own the school or not? And then the response would be yes. And the documents that we have title insurance, we have this legal opinion. Here's a copy of this legal opinion. It's open. It's never been a secret, and it could have been posted a long time ago. But nonetheless, that's what we have. So a simple, straightforward question gets a maybe not so simple all the time, but a straightforward answer. And now, if it's something that's in closed session and we can't answer their question, and then the response is, "I'm sorry, that was dealt with in closed session, and by law we cannot give you those details." Um, if it is an open records thing and the attorney general has got that and we're waiting to hear back from them, then whatever the situation and the place in the system is, then that would be our response.
I mean, we get a lot of money from the open records, and some of the questions. Never mind, I won't go any further.
Well, the problem, the difference between those things is that folks come in and they ask for open records and they say, I want this, this, and this. But it may not be all of the vital information that says where that situation is today. So this would be different in that anybody can come in and ask for something specific, but it might be not everything to do with that. And so we can't force people through open records to say, you know what, you asked for that document, the 1910 deed, but what about all this other stuff? And they go, nope, I don't want a copy of that. I just want that one deed right there. But if somebody says to the city, do you own the school property? The answer is yes, and here is the letter that summarizes that ownership. Two completely different things. So,
Do we know of any other city that's doing anything like this?
Yes, there's a lot of different examples out there. I mean, I can bring back some ideas for you, but it's not uncommon to have pages where questions are asked of the citizens. The citizens have, and then their answer just with factual information. So they are out there. Um, so I can bring some of those examples. I do have some ideas on that. I think it would be fairly simple. We would just create a page. I would tell each, the mayor and council members, it would be helpful if you all, you talk to citizens all the time. There's a lot of times I'll read excuse me, questions on social media, And I'm like, well, I just wish they would call City Hall and ask that question because we could answer it fairly easily. So, encourage and Councilman Member Majors, I know you've told me that you've done that quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, and I think that's great. I mean, I haven't gotten any calls, but I do think that's great. And that's what we need to do because I think a lot of times there are some simple answers, and I can tie a page on the website to Facebook and promote that so people would send their questions in and then we could, do one. I mean, a lot of different ideas that Councilmember Priest had on that.
Well, let's look at this again. Maybe the next meeting would that work for everybody?
Yes, reviewing it again, absolutely, because the spirit of what you're asking for, I'm totally in favor of. But yet, I don't want to put anybody on the spot when all of a sudden somebody puts in a question that's going to require significant research. Okay, and it's like, forgive me, I don't mean to be insulting to you, but that's an awfully open-ended question. Do you think you might be able to refine that a little bit? Help me help you, because, I mean, I've seen some open records requests. They're not asking for documents. They're asking to go do, 2 years worth of research. And it's like, no. You can say those documents don't exist. Again, the spirit of what you're suggesting, I'm all for it. I absolutely love it. The execution of it.
And that's what
The mechanics is
Yes.
bothering me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And-
The mechanics are bothering me.
And that's what I said. I don't have the perfect answer. That's what we're talking about it.
Well, we will make this an agenda item for the March 10th
Perfect.
meeting.
Thank you.
Is that
Thank you. Mary.
agreeable to you? Okay, we're going to move on now, and we got to get rid of Elaine here in a minute.
I know it.
The next one is just item O, discussion and any necessary action regarding the possibility of seeking a grant writing company to investigate funding for the renovation of city property on First Street and any other city facilities. Elaine, go for it.
Okay. Last week I talked about First Street, and some people still call that Old City Hall, and some people still call it the bank. So that would be the property we're talking about. And like I mentioned last meeting, the city council individually we took a survey several months ago, and everyone is in favor of renovating and using that building in some capacity. And as we talked about before, because of the bank and the former the bank that was there, and the age of the building, we've got a better chance to find funding for that building through grants, if that makes sense. Because of its location in the original town. Now, that's not to say that there's not grant funding out there for police departments and fire departments and public works. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's a different kind of funding. What I've also seen in a lot of communities that are smaller than like we are, that the fire department and police department, they're building public safety buildings and putting it all under one roof, and then they share a certain amount of facilities like a big meeting room where they would do training and stuff like that. So anytime you can combine and get everything under one roof, that's cheaper than having all these separate buildings everywhere. But I digress. So there was that Shirley that talked about grants? Um, the problem with grants is this: there are hundreds of them, and so the question is, which ones are most conducive, and which ones are we more likely to have a chance to get? It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of time. Believe me, I've done them. in the educational side. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. To keep nursing that along through the process, it's ongoing. And then if you're awarded, there is this enormous amount of time for the execution of it. And it's very tedious. When you take somebody else's money, if you do not execute that grant properly and they come in and do an audit, you know what the words are? Give me my money back. Well, you don't want to do that. So, um, I'm just my experience. I just don't think we have the staff to take that on. I really don't.
Well,
It's
my experience in the past, Elaine, and it's been in the past, so it may have
Mhm.
changed a lot, is that we as a city have picked a grant writer. In the past, we've kind of reviewed, this one looks better than this one, let's go with them. They in turn would look for grants. Should they find one, then they would not charge for looking for the grant, but they would add 10% onto administration.
That's right.
And they would do all the the paperwork this big time. The only other thing that sometime raised its ugly head is it was matching funds.
Yeah.
That we had, if you got $1, you got to put $1 in.
It's very hard to find anything that's 100%. Uh, some grants will take what they call in kind, and in kind can be labor, can be volunteer hours. It depends on the grant itself. But that 10% that we would pay a grant company,
It's well worth it.
well,
I
I'm
think,
telling you, we couldn't for 10%. We couldn't hire a person and have them on staff and have all the overhead that an employee requires. It's cheaper to pay the grant company than it is to have staff do it. And so, that is a fabulous idea if we had a lot of staff to do it in house. But what I would like to do is I would like for us to start looking for a grant writing company. We know that we can use the funds for our facilities. We need that kind of backup to make all these pieces fit. And the longer we wait, the longer it takes to get those grants written, the longer it takes for them to be processed to see if you even can get them. And so I think we need to be aggressive, and I want us to get moving.
Elaine, I
Well-
want you to get moving on this. I'm 100% in favor. So I agree with you. So let's get the ball rolling.
Well, and I don't know that we need a vote or bless you or anything, because weren't you already established
Yeah.
as a grant person, whatever?
Didn't we already?
I don't think I've been authorized to do anything like that. I don't recall any of that.
Well, and I think it was prior to, my setting here, but
Right.
that's what I understood. Elaine's looking for grants.
What do we
Can-
need to do? Do we need
Well,
to?
Do we even so just yeah so yes, I would agree. I mean, it's definitely, this is why companies like GrantWorks are so popular, and there are other grant writer companies out there. Just as an FYI, I did actually talk to Lenore, who was helping us with a community development block grant, about this, and so she is going to be keeping her eyes open. But we would have to go out for an RFP. And and I'm assuming you're talking about the old City First Street building, um, and um, and so we would want to do an RFP. I mean, GrantWorks has, a lot of, this is why a lot of times they get it, because they've just got a whole cadre of people on board.
Well, I would want them looking for
Everything?
everything,
Okay.
whether it's a public safety building
Sure.
or individual, fire, police, public works, whatever they can find to help us do because every building needs help. So I don't think we can just, just say, oh, we're just going to focus on First Street. That's going to be different kind of funding, like I said, because of its location. A public safety building Like I said, we're seeing those more and more, especially in smaller communities that are growing. And they had one over at Fate. I know you hear me talk about them, and I'm going to ask them to come see us sometime. But it's we need to be looking at everything,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay. Well, and yeah, but I mean, so it is about, targeting. So, but I'm still hearing facilities right now.
Yes.
Okay. So targeting facilities, but we can definitely, do an RFP and go forward and have them on board looking for that.
So do we need a vote to go for an RFP, don't we?
I mean, that's something, yeah, I mean, if you want to direct us to, I mean, I would say give staff a little bit of time here because, I mean, I understand we have a forum on facilities coming up on March 19th. We've also got budget coming up. So, when we are short staffed at City Hall as well, actually Public Works too. But anyway, so yes, I mean, we would want you guys to direct us to go out for an RFP on that.
So
A grant writing company.
do I hear a motion?
I make a motion. I give staff the direction to go out for RFP
For grants.
for grants.
Grant writer.
For a grant writer.
Yeah. Anybody else to add to that? Or do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have an motion and a second to go out for an RFP to obtain a grant writer company that would help us get grants for facilities. Is that the whole kit and caboodle? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, go for it, Cynthia. You needed something else to do.
Mayor, my
Yes.
name is not on anything.
Oh, Elaine just pointed out something y'all all need to hear. Her name is not on anything else. She will be quiet maybe the rest of the night on the thing. Okay, we're going to move on to item P, and this may be just as bad. Discussion regarding the comprehensive plan, Ashley Majors.
I'm tabling mine again. This one's too long, and I had printouts for everybody, so sorry, it's
So,
tabled.
You want to table it to next week? I mean,
Yes,
next
ma'am. Yes,
meeting?
If you have printouts, if you would get those to me and I can get them out to them so they can look at them prior to the meeting, that'd be
Yes.
great.
Now, after I've been such a smarty, the next one is mine. I'm asking for approval to go for a forensic audit. And the reason for that, I have been brought to my attention that some previous issues, concerns, and discrepancies have raised concerns, and forensic audit would show we are doing our due diligence. And hopefully we don't end up like a neighboring city. I think we'll come out fine, but we need to do a forensic audit, which I'm seeing faces back here. The audit we just had is more or less the city's accounting procedures and how we did it. By law, we have to do one of those every year, should be finalized by January. This is completely outside of that. Some people call it a deep dive. They go back a few years and look at this or that. And I'm asking for permission to request a forensic audit.
I'd like to know.
Go. Here's Elaine again.
Yeah, well, I'd like to know what it is that's caught your attention.
I can't go into great detail because it may be concerned as an investigation. The thing, what was brought to me was 5 different things over not this year, but in the past that didn't smell or look real good.
What years were they?
I'm sorry.
What years were they?
I don't know. I didn't get the exact years. Maybe the last 3 years, maybe 4. I'm trying to think of one of them. I know one of them we had. I don't think I'm saying anything I should, but we had a lot of retirement money missing, and specifically one of the council people at that time requested an investigation, and it never happened. The thing, and the city had to write big checks back to TML, and TML only went back I believe it was 4 years. They would let us make up the money and the people's retirement beyond 4 years, and I believe that was the cutoff. Then the city had to physically write checks to the worker bees that retirement had been shorted. So they are still short however many years, where it's very many or not many, and were re, they were compensated for the amount that would have gone to TML, but it doesn't do anything to their retirement.
So is that one of your, is that
That's one of the things, and I really probably shouldn't even gone into that one, but I'm like y'all, I would want to know.
Maybe we need to go into closed session, but I need more information than that. I can't, uh, I have trouble. How much would that cost, and how many years are you talking about going back? And I want to know what those warning signs are. I, I don't, I need more information.
So you do not want a forensic audit?
No, I didn't say that. I said I want to know what it's about, what those triggers are.
Well, and that's what I think the investigation in a forensic would bring to the surface. I probably shouldn't have even gone into that one.
The topic of the TML I think you're talking about was back in 2015 with 15 with the previous mayor, and I think you were on the council as well when that happened. What happened?
Part of that, I can't remember the whole.
And this is open record because it was on back then. The city secretary at the time was filing with TML for the pay periods, but on those months that 3 pay periods fell, she didn't file the correct paperwork, so that third pay period was left off. After she had left, this was found out with the next secretary, and they paid all those payments since then, and every audit since then has said that that is good. So I don't think that we need to spend more money to go back and look at something that's already been investigated and approved and good since then. So like Ms. Priest said, without any other evidence, I don't think we can support it, forensic audit, because my research shows that most auditors are charging around $15,000 to do something like that.
Well, and I've got a call in, something hadn't got the return call.
And haven't we had
CPA estimating 60,000.
Into the microphone, yeah.
Yeah, pardon me. My CPA, and it's been a couple of years ago, when possibly about the same time, he estimated 60,000. When I sent my taxes to him, I asked him again. He says, "Oh Lord, don't ask me," because prices have gone up. And he had nothing to base the 60,000 on other than just his personal experience. So there is a guy in Montague County that supposedly is cheaper. Now, we don't necessarily want cheaper if they're not better, but I've left word for him to call just to give us a ballpark. You know, my CPA is in Fort Worth. He was the chief auditor for the city of Dallas, so he may be looking up here, and hopefully we're down here. So, don't know.
So we've had all of these different steps of review, and then we've had consultants that go over and audit our accounting every year. And I mean,
Would the accountant or the auditor that just did it, would they find discrepancies like that?
That's how we found one of the big ones. In fact, Bill.
This person here just said just now that we were having discrepancies?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely not.
Bill Spores, I never say his last name.
Bill Sporer.
That's retiring, that was our auditor. We all of a sudden, when we had a mayor walk off the job and everything, and his wife was our city secretary. And I like the people. I'm just saying this is what happened.
You need to speak into the mic.
Okay, then whenever they were walked off the job, for whatever reason, our city auditor quit at the same time. And then I found out stupid and naive that I was at the time, I was just on the council on the thing, that we were paying this gentleman like $35,000 a year, and I assumed that was the going rate for an auditor. Well, we didn't get one, and we didn't get one, so I got on the phone and I called New York, Justin, and somewhere else, and I said, "Who does your audits?" Two of them come up with this Bill Spores, and I asked New York. I said, "What do you charge? I mean, what does he charge you?" And he was charging them $10,000. That's pretty big spread from 35,000. So we did background and all that, and chose Bill to be our auditor. Uh, Josh, he found it going first year, going back, and he came in and bid 12,000 to do our audit. And I think that was because we had fire and police that New York did not have to be on the audit list. So he got in there, and when he started going back on the thing, if I remember right, the secretary that we had then said, "Do you want me to go to the council and see if they will increase your pay?" You know, because he went back 11 years. So that was time consuming on the thing. And after that time, he said, "No, yeah, don't forget you. They don't quote you, they offer you." Whatever his offer for 10,000 or for 12,000 was, he honored it. And we went back 11 years. A substantial amount of money was paid to city employees that their time went in, but not money. And again, TML would only adjust for 4 years. So it was quite an ordeal. But that's one of the things that I think, because at the time, investigation was requested and it didn't happen. And I can't go into some of the others because, on the thing, I just, if we don't feel like we can afford a forensic audit, let's just say we can't afford it.
I don't think it's solely the fact that we can't afford it. I'm sure if it was
Well,
warranted, we could find the money. I just think, one, we don't want to spend, well, basically, we don't want to spend money on something we don't have concrete evidence on,
Yeah.
especially when our auditors have been through here for the last 5, 10 years, and everything is good according to them. So I don't think a forensic audit is warranted at this time.
So, like I say, I've been approached, and so I'm approaching y'all guys.
Do you think that we should go into executive session when Carvin gets
We-
put it off to next meeting with Carvin?
On this
I
one, we
don't-
can't. I've already talked to Carvin.
Yeah, I don't think I can. I mean,
But-
it's fine. I just don't
I
think
mean,
I
I-
can disclose anymore.
But do you think we should go in executive session and talk about this and go into further detail, or?
We're not
don't know.
allowed to go into executive session on this item.
That's where I started it, and
If you
Carvin
can, if
said
you can
no.
give us more, I mean, it's an open session, give us more.
Well, and that's, like I said, I'm pretty much locked in to what other things are small, but is it a point of trend? And we all know the horror stories that are coming out of one of our neighboring cities that,
But you have to be honest, the comparison between the horror story about our neighbor,
uh-huh.
they didn't have council meetings. They didn't have the points of check that we do. They didn't have an auditor. They had
And-
none of those things.
And really what I think a lot
So
of
I don't think
these
there is a comparison.
are historic past, because I really think we're doing good at this point. Well, we saw what, um, a little of this and a little of that, but they looked at, I think you don't ever get an audit that doesn't show a minus or a plus somewhere. And, they said it was clean and go for it. So if y'all don't want one, that's fine.
Well, just to be clear on because I had been hearing this story, but it, as I understand it, it actually was resolved because, and this was talked about in council, and apparently you were on council, but, and that's exactly what happened. It was just that third week of and there's 5 of them, I guess, 5 that have, through 5 weeks in the month, and so, or 3 to 5, and so all of that was identified. All that money was paid to TMRS if they were current um, employees, and if they were not, then it was paid directly to the employee. So it was already resolved, and that was
It was resolved as far as paying the employees. What was not resolved was why did it happen?
well, I think it was a clerical error. I mean, of somebody
Well,
that didn't understand. But at that point, they're no longer here. The current staff, we do pay all
Right.
5 weeks for 12 months, when they're there. And that is something, as you said, because I did talk to Mr. Spore about that as well. And he confirmed, I mean, yes, he, along with the city secretary after that, found it, and it was resolved, and it was handled at that point in time. So, and we
And
have
I'm not
controls now in place that
Yeah.
that won't happen
Well,
again.
that was one of several things. Now, if all y'all got to say is, I don't want a forensic audit. If you don't want one, we'll move right along. Um, Is that what I'm hearing? Is that you really don't want one?
Yes,
It
based on
was
current information, I do not want a forensic audit.
it was asked by you, and so thank you for asking for the employees. For if they asked, you tried. We couldn't do it for them.
Okay, let's move on to item R. And that's mine, and it's relative to the parking ordinance that's beginning to cause major concern within our city. My remembrance of that ordinance is that it was, what is the big word, moratorium, was set on that ordinance and that it has never come off.
No, it did.
When did it come off?
It came off in 2020. So that moratorium was on when I got here in 2020, and it was taken off. And what happened was, at that point in time, you all, the council members at that point in time said, chief of police, PD, would be responsible for any of the cars on the street, because that had to do with traffic. And when it came to the parking ordinance, that would be to go back and look at it. Now, I did go back and look at it. Sean and I have talked about that on several occasions. However, when we have looked at other cities and what they do for parking in residential areas, our ordinance actually is very lenient compared to a lot of other cities. I mean, a lot of other cities don't allow RV parking at all in residential neighborhoods. There's just a whole host of different regulations that other cities have that we don't. What we have is that you must park on an improved surface. So that can be anything from concrete, which is obviously the most expensive, to asphalt, to gravel, to pavers. You have the 4 wheels on pavers, and you will be fine, according to our ordinance. If it is in the backyard behind a fence and the code cannot see it, then that's fine. So we did look at some. We were looking at the width of the streets. Redbud, there's no way they can park on the street. It's too narrow. Crown Point, it's wide enough to where they can. We looked at, well, if we limited it to one side, but inevitably you're going to make half the people, half the people will want them parking on the other side, and half the people will want them parking on that side, so you're never going to make everybody happy. So that's why I haven't brought it back, I will tell you. And what code has been doing, one of the things we find when we try to, all staff is doing is going in and trying to enforce the ordinances that you have. And we have many here that want to see the city cleaned up, and so that's where a lot of this comes from. But what they've tried to do lately is say, okay, let's go to a neighborhood, because inevitably what happens is they'll issue a notification, a violation, which is a notification. Again, code compliance, we try to get compliance. Issue a notification, and then they're like, well, what about my neighbor over here, or what about this neighbor over here, or what about this neighbor over here? And it's always a matter of resources. When it comes to code, we're proactive and we're reactive. Most times we're reactive because we only have a person doing code 10 hours a week. So what they tried to do is say, okay, and I think this is very innovative of staff to do this, we're going to just go neighborhood by neighborhood. So we're going to start out at we've got 5 neighborhoods. We're going to start out at Bywell. And we did that, and of course there's going to be some pushback, but we were able to get some compliance out there. And then they went over to Ellis and Chisholm, and I think there's probably about 10, and it comes in your monthly reports first of the month. There's probably about 10 notifications that were sent, and so we're working that. And so the goal is to go neighborhood by neighborhood.
And that's what's concerning me, and I'm glad we have some Methodists here today. They are parking on what is truly an easement. Now, if we make them put a hard surface down to park on, I believe it will be covering water lines on the thing. Sean, you
I don't
can
think we're
address-
talking about when they park it temporarily or whatever for a meeting. This is long-term parking where people are parking vehicles that don't move, fifth wheels, trailers,
Well,
whatever
I was
on
told
surface.
when they had this one alive a few years ago that if I visited people, well, the Hollimans, today you're familiar with the Hollimans, that I could not park on the grass. I had to park on the roadway, which, you'd say a prayer. So I think we need to really be careful.
I am, because we are, because this, even this process is that when the code enforcement does look at stuff, he takes a notice, he writes it down, and it's usually a 2 or 3 week process before he even sends a notice. See if that issue is corrected the next time he drives by. It's just not the first time he sees it that he's just going to file it, send that thing. So like the Bywell took 2 months because it's just not somebody could just be parked there temporarily and then gone the next week. He just wants to make sure this is a long-term violation that people are occurring, and most of them, well, 99% of them are long-term trailers, fifth wheels.
Well, what I'm talking about is cars that have parked in front, behind, or sideways.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Wherever.
That's why we're taking that long-term process.
Well, it's long-term, but and one of them I know asked to cement where they parked, and they said no because you'll be covering up, and I'm going to say it was water lines. It might have been sewer.
Okay, I don't know.
That's
I don't know
for
what
your
they did
time,
back then. I'm sorry what they did back then or said back then. We're currently what we're doing.
But I mean, now can we come along and ticket that person that parks there pretty consistently?
Again, when he sees a violation, he sees if it's a recurring violation. If it's a recurring violation, he'll notify them, and that individual can contact code and they can have a discussion about the situation. Again, it doesn't have to be concrete. It can be gravel. It could be asphalt. It could be pavers. Okay, it's just parking off.
Okay, these ladies here, and they're new to the Methodist. I've lived there 60 years, and they have parked there without a problem. I mean, I'm not saying it's a problem, but if y'all had to put a hard surface down, that doesn't.
Well, I don't think we're talking about a church service. We're talking about a long-term. The vehicle does not move for days and days and days. A fifth wheel, a trailer that's in constant violation, not a church service that is.
It happens once a week or twice a week.
Yes, we're talking about.
Well, these guys are getting real active, so you don't really know how much they're going to park there.
No. What? Do not worry. He said that it's people that have parked their trailer and they don't move it for months and months at a time, and they don't have the right surface. Where we park over there on the side where the grass is, there may be a line under there, but we're not staying I mean, we go and we leave and, and so that is not a problem. That is not what they're describing at all.
Yeah. And just example, the ones that we just recently sent out in February, that actually process actually started 1st of December, end of November. Okay. So and the violations didn't go out until February because it was a constant review who was in constant violation of parking on grass of vehicles or dead vehicles or trailers that are not moving. Not somebody that just parks there once a week and it's gone.
Okay, but what if somebody has nowhere to park and they live there, they park there every day, and I'm not going to tell you who or where, but it's kind of sort of gravel.
Again,
but it's on the right, what do you call it? Not the right of way, but the um, easement.
Easement.
Yeah.
Again, each thing is going to be reviewable. If they do get cited, the property owner will get a notification. They can contact the code official, and the code official will direct the proper procedures that he should take.
I think she's talking about Old Town because Old Town's a little different from Ellison. Is right. It's because Old Town is a little different because we don't have driveways and there's gravel and so it's a little different with easements.
Again, I
think it's a case by case talking to the code enforcement.
There are some residents that just I do believe on West First or next street over that are applying gravel to the area that they park. That's, again, if you're parking in the right of way, you're parking in the right of way. If you want to put down gravel to be compliant, that is your choice to be compliant. That's, again, we are trying to get compliance to park off the grass.
Correct. Now, what you were talking about, like Redbud is where you can't in the
it's
fire
too narrow. I mean,
too narrow. Yes.
Yeah.
And where the fire trucks can't get down at night. Trophy Club, for instance, they have an ordinance where you can't park on the street at night from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. So, I mean, my daughter.
There's also a difference between parking somewhat off the side of the road and parking all the way into the grass to your front door. Also.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So again, we take each item and we review it, and if we see if it's a reoccurring, we will notify those people.
Correct. Thank you so much.
Well, just like I say, let's be thoughtful when we get there because people have lived there forever.
I don't think we've written a citation out of the 2 times we did it because we tried to seek education and compliance. And so, I mean, even when we mow grass, when we do that, we don't fine them,
Well, it might be like Elaine's saying, let's communicate on the thing because a lot of people are concerned they're going to ticket me, cite me, or whatever.
Again, when they get the notice, it tells them, please contact the code enforcement official, not City Hall, not the utility billing clerk, not the city secretary, not even the city manager. If you contact the code enforcement official, he will direct the proper procedures to handle it.
Thank you so much. I see all of you shaking your heads, but we live in Old Town, and Old Town is a little different from the rest with the driveways and stuff because it is really hard. So thank you for going into that, but,
We've beat this to death. I am through, and we have one more thing on here, and it's discussion and action regarding emergency sewer line repairs.
So I'm going to let you talk, Sean, on this, but what I just wanted to introduce is we did have a gentleman come in on Friday last week, and Public Works staff had addressed it during the day, and he was still having problems, when he came in at about 5 o'clock. And so staff stayed over. They came out and they looked at the issue. It is an emergency sewer line repair, and you guys have that. So what we're asking, I'm going to let him get into the details of it, but what we're asking is that you give us authorization, and we are asking that this would come out of savings. It's basically $57,000 for the sewer line repair that has to happen, and so we're asking that it would come out of savings on that.
Did we get more than one bid, or did nobody else show
up? I called 3 contractors. 3 contractors received this information, the measurements. All 3 came out. I did just only receive 1 bid. And that right now is Tejas Commercial Construction. and they do work for Fort Worth and other large cities for emergency purposes. As you see, when we came out there last Friday, the homeowner was working on a sewer stoppage. We assisted him, found out that the sewer line is collapsed underneath the road. And you can see where the line, this is an existing manhole right here. We found that the line is collapsed somewhere in here. However, this line that was installed was not installed properly either. Anytime you have a bend in a line, you're supposed to have a manhole. There's not a manhole here, so we are requesting that we actually replace this line and install it properly. I have talked to both homeowners. They are aware of the issue. Also, this homeowner right here, his sewer services crosses illegally his property, so we're going to extend this sewer main all the way to his property so he can be tied onto in his line without crossing a private property. Again, this is a collapsed line. We have made some cleanup here, but these two houses are backing up into this gentleman's property right here.
And certainly I don't know all your stuff, but did anybody offer anything with what I'm calling a slip pipe where they could just go under the road and not have to?
You only can slip pipe if the pipe is not offset. This line is collapsed. And
mine collapsed.
Yeah.
And we did slip pipe, and when they got under the road, the red tiles were in bad shape, but they were able to force that slip pipe through. I didn't lose fence. I didn't lose trees. I lost money.
The reason why it has to be installed this way is because everything back here is not installed properly. We're actually installing a correct main. And so that's what it is. So we're actually installing a correct main, not an undersized main. Whoever installed this, developer or homeowner or whatever, or the city allowed it, it was not installed properly. We are installing it properly, and it's how it should be.
Yeah.
And a slip line.
I'm just curious.
Slip line won't achieve that. And I mean, there is a tree that will have to come down. This is an old cottonwood tree. However, I know these residents have requested that tree removed.
Sure.
And so that's
that's on the opposite side, right?
Yeah, that's where the manhole is. And so, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, if you go back up, zoom out, please. Okay, in the Holloman's yard, and then the other one.
Yeah.
Was the sewer line, since it wasn't connected, was it not connected, or just?
No, it's connected. It's just collapsed.
It's collapsed. Was was the sewer like seeping and everything? Because the same builder is another house.
This house right here?
The two houses there. There's another house that is close to me, the same builder, and it happened to them. The same thing.
They had never.
No, it's connected. It's just that the way it was connected and installed is not installed properly according to. You can't run a private service across somebody's private property. So your sewer line cannot cross the mayor's line if you are to live next to each other.
Okay.
And this is what's happening is illegally crossing this property and not installed properly. So we are installing a main properly according to regulations. So, and then I've already talked to both homeowners. They have agreed to give us a right of access, and they know that they're going to give, and they also agreed to give us an easement to have a city main in the rear of their property.
Okay.
Because this is an emergency situation, we can't really sit here and wait weeks to figure out best things. I'd like to go ahead and motion that we allow city staff to move forward with repairs with the winning bidder.
For the funds to come from savings.
And the
general
funds to come
savings.
from the savings fund.
I'll make it.
And you really didn't have to have our approval before the fact. You could have gone ahead with it and come to us. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's emergency, but I mean, we had a meeting, so I wanted to bring it to you.
I second it.
Can they start soon?
I second it.
Yeah, I just had I just got the quote the other day, and so they couldn't get started anyways until probably Friday or next week anyways, and so we took this opportunity to bring it to y'all beforehand.
Is the residents, do they have sewer? Do they have water?
Yeah, they're still using it. Unfortunately, it is still coming out a little bit. They are regulating their sewer.
Okay.
But again, this line is over 10 foot deep. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the equipment to do it.
Understood.
And so it is what it is. there's a delay because this crew can't get out until possibly next week anyways.
I just want to make sure the residents are taken care of.
Did we get a second? We got a
Yes.
first? Okay.
I'm in favor.
We have a motion, we have a first and a second to allow the city to go ahead and repair the sewer problem at the end of First Street and School Road.
And to take it from the savings, general fund savings.
I'm sorry, do what? I can't.
And to take it from general fund savings.
Oh, and to take the money from the general fund savings. Is that what the motion was for? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So fix it, Sean.
Thank you.
Well, and I do want to commend staff because they were out, all weekend, Friday out late, all weekend, and working on this. So
Okay, does anybody have any agenda items for the next time?
I do. Oh. You go ahead, Elaine.
I just have one.
Goodness gracious, things are looking.
I know. So I would like to add to the agenda the questions that were raised by the Methodist Church regarding their classification as commercial. If there is another category, they mentioned a particular, you've done some research there. So I'd just like us to do that and look into that. We have lots of not-for-profits in our town, and so I'd be interested to see what, how that works. We talk about that commercial properties can pass through their charges, but I don't think that the not-for-profits are in the business of passing things through. So those additional costs. So I'd just like us to research that and look at to see if there are any options for our not-for-profits. I do think that we have to not just say those entities that do worthwhile things. I think they really have to have a 501(c) or something, some category of not-for-profit.
And I would like to bring the animal control ordinance back for next week or next meeting. Well, the animal control, I think you said you'd have it on the March 10th.
well, we're trying, but I mean, there's work that goes into it, and so we're still researching that. But
Let's try to bring it back on the
I'll
March
yep.
10th.
Has anybody called you for the cats? Have you talked to any of the residents? Asked them to call, or to come? Has
well,
anybody?
No.
All right. I have OpenGov and website. So
What about OpenGov, please?
to us to talk about OpenGov. We got the email today. So
What about it? I mean, I need to, let me just say, it's going to be helpful for me to prepare when we know what it is you guys want to talk. So
That's
what
okay.
is the, that's
why
all I
we're
need.
why we're not going with excuse me. Why we are not going with I can't talk. Why we are not going with OpenGov, the letter from Carvin.
Why we're not going with
What? Never mind. Just leave it off. I can't. Sorry.
Now let's put it on and see what the background was for Carvin's letter, which I didn't get. And
I didn't get.
Yeah, I'll deal
What are you
with
talking
Carvin.
about?
Did you get anything? Well, maybe you're the chosen one or something.
Well, maybe it was an old one I was looking at.
Okay.
Well, Carvin hasn't written a letter on OpenGov.
Maybe it was a different one. Maybe I was going through old emails. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe it was.
We won't put that on there, but we'll talk.
Well, I mean,
We'll
just,
look
if
at
there's
what
a question,
Ashley's
let me
got.
know. I
Yeah.
mean, but Carvin has not sent a, I'm sure he would let me know. But
Pardon me. I must have read it. I was going through old emails. Pardon me.
Motion to adjourn.
Y'all are absolutely in a hurry. Is anybody against us adjourning? Anybody for it? Aye. Let's go and we'll see y'all back in 2 weeks or whatever it turns out to be. Hey, it's not even 10 o'clock. Uh-huh. Has one. Oh, okay. Yeah, I have no idea. I think they open at 8 or so. Oh, you say we may open at 9. Yeah, that's good enough. I don't, does Shayna have to come from a long way? Julie, I know where she comes. Yeah, yeah, well, you be careful because, we kept looking at stuff. In 30 minutes, it's going to rain. 20 minutes, you're going to, and they're usually pretty accurate on the iPhone. I don't know if it's Weather Center or whatever. It didn't happen, but we got a little rain. Uh, so who knows? Yeah, just pick a time that you think is reasonable. You know, um, if 9, and if they show up at 10, we'll be glad they showed up. I mean, they're adults. They're enough to know what's out there. I was more concerned, and I see they did put ice out here of sidewalks and walking areas on the thing. So, yeah. Well, but had it come again today, this afternoon, like they were telling us it was, they probably couldn't keep up, with stuff. So whatever. Well, anyhow, I'm sorry I can't go into any more detail on the forensic audit, but the way I was contacted and stuff, I probably said more than I should. But yeah, right, right. Oh yeah, and I've got to call in somebody, Decatur Casa at Decatur. Their director left with 500,000 or something, so they had to do a forensic audit. But after 16 phone calls, they didn't pay for it. The state did it, so I still don't know. I was trying to find a figure, and when I have just so happened, I talked to my accounting guy this afternoon, and he said, "Oh Lord," he told me 60,000. He said, "I have no idea," because that had been a few years ago when this had raised its ugly head. Yeah, questions or something. Yeah, yeah. But it may never come to pass. But I had to throw